The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Mather. I'm the Associate Vice President of U.S. Programs at PRB, and I help manage the ACS Online Community website. Thanks for joining us today for today's webinar on a proposed format change to simplify the ACS summary files. We have three experts from the Census Bureau presenting in the webinar today. Caleb Hopler, who is a survey statistician with the American Community Survey Office, and then we have two IT specialists from the ACS office at the Census Bureau, Matt Key and Ben Wren. Just a few notes before we start. We're going to save questions for the end, but if you have a question during the webinar, please type it into the question box that is in your webinar control panel, which should be right there on the right side of your screen. So you can type those questions in at any time. Our panelists today also said that they can be available after the webinar ends if anybody wants to stick around and ask any follow-up questions. We can do that and have you, we can unmute you and let you talk more informally with them. This webinar is also being recorded, so if you need to leave early, you'll be able to access this webinar online, and you should receive an email with a link to that recording sometime in the next few days. And with that, I will turn it over to Caleb.
Thank you, Mark. Hello, everyone. So thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Caleb Hopler, and I am a survey statistician. I'm in the Outreach and Education branch within the American Community Survey Office here at the Census Bureau. And I'm joined by my two colleagues, Matt Key and Ben Wren, who are IT specialists within the office, and they are both the powerhouses that are behind the proposed format to the ACS summary file. So I do want to thank you again for attending today's webinar. We are covering proposed format change to simplify the ACS summary file. Our goal for this webinar today is to provide insights into the changes. We are looking to solicit testing and feedback from you all, and we need to equip you with the resources to do so. So I want to first clarify that this is a test only. No changes are happening for the 2019 ACS summary file, and likely not for the 2020 ACS summary file. We are looking to the future for a new summary file format, and we are wanting to engage with you now with the beta version to understand how well this test format could be useful to you. I will start with a quick intro into the ACS and the ACS summary file for those that may be newer to the ACS program and to the summary file. Then I'll provide a general overview of the beta format and what we are looking for in feedback from you all. But then I'll pass the presentation over to Matt Key, and he will explain in greater detail the new format proposal and provide, we'll then switch it over to his contact, Ben, who will provide a live demo of the beta version. I'll then wrap up the presentation, showing where the resources are located, reiterate feedback requirements, and then open up the line for questions. So for those of us that are joining today who may be new to the ACS or American Community Survey, let me just start off real quick with the basics and foundation of what the ACS is all about. The ACS, or American Community Survey, is on the leading edge of survey design, continuous improvement, and data quality. It is the nation's most current, reliable, and accessible data source for local statistics on critical planning topics. The survey samples approximately 3.5 million addresses each year. So these data are collected continuously throughout the year to produce annual social, economic, housing, and demographic estimates. The data collected through the ACS is then used to distribute more than $675 billion of federal government spending each year. Our estimates, covering more than 40 topics, support more than 300 known federal uses and countless non-federal uses. So some quick examples of federal programs that utilize ACS data to help determine their funding include the U.S. Department of Agriculture, who utilizes it for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the Department of Health and Human Services for the Medical Assistance Program, the Department of Housing and Urban Development for Community Development Block Grant Program, and also the Department of Transportation for their Highway Planning Construction Program. The Census Bureau releases 3 different sets of data estimates in regard to the ACS each year in the form of 1-year and 5-year period estimates, as well as 1-year supplemental estimates. So I'd like to dive into just a quick background of what the current summary file is. So the ACS summary file, again, this is the current, is a set of comma delimited text files that contain all of the detailed tables for the ACS data releases. The current format is comprised of 3 files. We have the summary file estimates, the margins of error, and then also the geography files. The detailed tables are stored in a series of files with only the data from the tables and without such information as the table title, description of the rows, or geographic identifiers. That information is located in other files that data users must then merge with the data files to reproduce the full tables. So the current format of the ACS summary file is, or at least it can be, confusing for data users, and it is also extra work for the ACS staff to support 2 different deliveries. For data users, there are multiple sources of technical documentation that's needed to discover which file or sequence contains the table of interest, and then must further combine 3 files to recreate this table. On our side, the ACS staff, each year we must split the data into 140,000 files and prepare the same information into 2 different formats to accommodate the requirements for the ACS summary file and also for the API. So ACS staff must also maintain thousands of lines of code each vintage year and provide public trainings throughout the year. So in short, the issues with the current ACS summary file include a complex and confusing format, as well as excess work for both the data users and the American Community Survey staff. So going over a general overview of the new format, which is in beta, the American Community Survey Office plans to streamline the ACS summary file production by delivering only 1 file. Instead of splitting the files by state and sequence number, the new format will be by table ID. So that is, we would post a file for each table containing the estimates and the margin of error for all available geographies. This will reduce the complexity of the American Community Survey summary file from over 140,000 files to about just 1,000 files. This will improve ease of use for data users and also lower the cost of creating, verifying, and supporting the ACS summary file compared to its current format. So there are a lot of benefits to the proposed changes here. First of all, for data users, we see this as limiting confusing sequences and logical record numbers. Users will no longer need to search through multiple files for geography labels, since they will already be together. And then it'll also reduce the summary file complexity, which then makes documentation much easier to understand. For the Census Bureau, this will help save time and resources. So Census Bureau staff will be able to provide the ACS summary file in an easier to use format. I want to reiterate again, the test format that we are talking about today is a beta version only, and that will be released with the production file. The production file I'm mentioning is the file that you are already familiar with, which is the current format found on our FTP site. So therefore, the production 2019 ACS summary file will still be in the current format, but there will be a beta 2019 ACS summary file that data users such as yourselves can try out and then provide feedback on that. We do not have a date for when we would completely move to a new format. We will not replace the summary file formats for the 2019 summary file release, and likely not for the 2020 summary file release, because we will match the 2020 decennial census summary file. Okay, so now I'd like to pass it over to Matt, who will describe the new test format in greater detail.
Thanks, Caleb. So, as Caleb mentioned earlier, how many files do we need to split our tables into for the summary file? And it turns out we did the math. It's over 140,000. And as you can see here, we'll put it in presentation mode. Many of you know this, probably painstakingly, that we have this many files representing our summary file. So the details of that are for each of our data sets, 1 year and 5 year. Those two files are broken down into 3 different types. So we have one entire summary file, a summary file by state, and also a sequence by state. That's further broken down into 52 states, and tracks and block groups, and then sequences, and then estimates and MOE. So if we dive right in here, and view, this is what we have in FTP that you may be familiar with. Most of you, if you've worked with the summary file, this is our FTP site for 2018. So we have 1 year sequence by state here. There's some other files mixed in, and 5 year sequence by state, and also the entire summary file. Okay. So what would this new version look like? We have a little graphic here showing our current summary file. This is what we just looked at for 2018, and what it would look like in the new format. So 1 file per table in 1 folder. So right now we have, as you can see on the left, 5 year by state, entire summary file, sequence by state. This is just showing the details of those 5 year geographies. And then also, we have the templates and other files we use with those data files. So on the right, we have this summary file proposed summary file format. So this is a high level view. This is showing 1 table per file. All of the data for that table would be in 1 file. And then also we have, as you're familiar with, just with a different name, the geography files and table shells. Those are largely unchanged. Those have all of the component IDs, the geo IDs, geo labels for both 1 and 5 year. And then also the table shells with all of the table labels. So as a reminder, what did the old data look like? And diving into the summary file documentation, you'll see this screenshot for 2017. So this is what our current summary file looks like. It has the sequence number here, which is 38, and also the logical record number, so 38, meaning which table are we looking at data for, and then the logical record number for which geography we're looking for. And this could represent multiple tables on one line, how they put things together. And so what would the new format look like? So scrolling down, we'd see the data. This is an example for 2018 5 year for B01001A, sex by age, white alone. And you can see it's much cleaner. It has the geo ID directly here. And then in the columns, it has the estimates, and the column header has the table and line number that relates to that column there. And also the estimates and MOEs all in 1 file here. As a note, because we are combining files, each of those files is going to be larger than few kilobytes. That is what the file sizes are now, but it's doable with today's computing. It's not as if we're still using floppy disks as if when this was designed back in the 90s. Okay, that's it for this one. And now I'd like to pass it over to Ben for a live demo of the new format.
Hi, this is Ben. Good afternoon. So we have created some example SAS programs for the proposed new summary file. And you can find the program code from this program directory on our website once it's published. So today we'll just go over the first example program, which is very simple. And its purpose is just to output data for all geographies and subgeographies of a given state from a particular one-year table. In this particular case, we're using table B19001 and the state of California as an example. So once you have downloaded the raw data and the one-year geography file, all you need to do is, on top of the program, specify the table ID of the data you're working with, and obviously the state code. Here, you just need to declare the directory for save the data file and one-year geo file, and also please declare the output location where you want to save the SAS dataset. So let's run this program quickly, and while it's running, let me show you what it does. Because Matt has already showed our new summary file dataset are pipe delimited, so we're using proc import to read in the dataset. And since the first row of data already comes with the variable name, proc import will grab those variable name. Notice we're using guessing rows here. This is to avoid truncation, because by default, SAS proc import will only inspect or scan the first 20 rows of input data and automatically assign lengths for each variable. However, the GeoID length will increase as we get into subgeography level. So we set the guessing rows to 10,000 for this particular data set. We also use proc import to read in the geo file since it's already comma separated. However, before merging the two data sets, we need to clean up the GeoID variable from the data to remove the geography vantage code. After removing the GeoVantage code, we'll just use a proc SQL to do a left join of the table data with the geography file on GeoID, where the state abbreviation code is equal to the one we declared on top, which should be CA for state of California. And the output will look like this. The SAS dataset will come with GeoID and its label from the geo file, and all the estimates and MOEs from the dataset for table B19001. And there should be, in total, 803 observations for all the geography and subgeographies from state of California in this table. Notice we no longer use sequence number or logical record number in merging the data. Instead, we just use GeoID. So this completes the demo, and it's a really simple program. There is a more advanced one called example 2. It will also be published alongside with this one. And thank you. I'll hand it back to Caleb.
right, thank you very much, Ben. So I would like to go ahead and go over resources and feedback on the new format. This is Caleb Hopler speaking again. Let me just ask Mark, can you let me know if you are seeing the slide or are you seeing the notes? Wasn't able to confirm that.
Yep, slides look good.
Very good, thank you very much. So now that you've seen an overview of the beta format, I'd like to outline what we are asking for you all to do. If you see the link on this screen, this is where it's going to take you to the updates to the ACS summary file webpage. Mark, if you are able to, can you please copy and paste and send out in the chat function to the attendees this link for their ease? I will also show you actually really quickly. Pull it up here, this page. So, okay, so this is the page, the updates to the ACS summary file. Some of you may have had a chance to go ahead and take a look at this. So it just gives you a quick overview, the background, the issues that are presented in the current format, and then what our changes are. So very much similar to our presentation webinar today. But if you scroll down towards the bottom, you can see our Getting Started section. And here you'll see the links that could take you to the FTP site with the beta version here. So if you were to click that and then go to 1 year, so this will take you to our prototype beta version of the 1 year data and then the 5 year. And if I were to go back out a little bit, go back to the main page, and you were to click on example 1, this will take you to our example page. And so both links will actually take you to example page. You can choose the example 1 or example 2. Example 1 is more for a basic overview of what this what the beta summary file can do. And then I would say example 2 is more advanced. It's probably more for advanced users, but you will be able to find step-by-step documentation in our documentation folder for both example 1 and example 2. Going back to our page here, you'll also be able to go directly to the documentation from this link, and then clicking on this link will take you, I'm opening up in a new tab, will take you right here to the webinar page within the Data Users Group site. So if you are not able to see this whole presentation right now, you can come back here, click here, or just go to the site directly and find the recorded versions uploaded. And then what we are asking is, after you take a look at one or both of these examples, provide us some feedback. We are looking to see how you all feel is appropriate for this format. We're looking at look and feel, functionality, etc. So 2 ways we're looking for feedback. If you could go to the discussion forum on the ACS Users Group site, opening a new tab, it'll take us to right here, which is the proposed changes to the ACS summary file format. If you were directly on the landing page for this site, what you could also do is go to discussion forum and see right here the proposed changes to the ACS summary file format. So you could click here, and we would greatly appreciate any type of feedback that you have for us to go ahead and send in a reply. Note that this is open to the public to be able to view, but you must have an account, which is free for all to join, with the Data Users Group to be able to actually input. So I'm not able to send it in, I must log in first. Another way to send in feedback is to send us an email at the acso.users.support@census.gov with the subject ACS summary file feedback. Some of you may recognize this email address right here. So this email address is for my branch in the outreach and education branch within the American Community Survey Office, where we will help data users with their data questions. So that's why it's imperative, please, that if you're sending an email to this line with feedback on the beta version, then to put in the subject ACS summary file feedback so that my other team members are able to differentiate that and leave it for me to take a look at. We would appreciate any type of compliments, constructive criticism, but whatever it is, please be as specific as possible. That will help us best to redesign and update the beta version to make it best for you all. We ask that you send all feedback into us by Friday, November 13th. So again, provide feedback either through the discussion forum I showed you or through our email provided on the screen with the subject ACS summary file feedback. And please provide it by Friday, November 13th of this year. So as I wrap up today's webinar, I'd like to invite you all to stay in touch by telling us how you will use data from the American Community Survey. So if you or your organization has used the ACS to make an important decision, help your business, help your community, expand your business, what have you, please visit the link at the bottom of the slide to share your story and explore how data enthusiasts across the country are using ACS data in creative ways. So by doing so, provides further support for the importance of the data we collect here at the Census Bureau, and it's a great way to further promote our data. In closing, again, I encourage you to connect with us directly. You can sign up for and manage alerts from the ACS via GovDelivery. Also add yourself to GovDelivery if you want the slides from this presentation. You know what, actually, the slides from this presentation will be uploaded to the ACS online community. Sorry about that, I misspoke. But you can visit our website, census.gov/ACS, to learn more about the ACS. Connect with us on our social media at #ACSdata. Any questions or feedback, send us to acso.users.support@census.gov. So this concludes today's webinar on the proposed format change to simplify the ACS summary file. I want to thank you for attending and having an interest about the important data the Census Bureau collects. I'd like to now open the floor for questions. Please submit any questions through the webinar's question box.
Great. Thank you, Caleb. That was very useful. We do have several questions that have come in, but I just wanted to start with that November, I think it's November 13th deadline. Yeah. So given that that's just a couple weeks away from now, will there be opportunities beyond that over the coming year if people don't have an opportunity to look at the new format in the next 2 weeks? Will there be other opportunities for people to weigh in as they start to use this beta file?
Thanks, Mark. Yes, we would appreciate feedback as they come. We are asking to have it by Friday, November the 13th. I know that's a bit of a quick turnaround. The reason why we're asking for so soon is because we are hoping to get feedback so that we can finalize the 2019 beta version and have that available, completely available, in December of this year. We don't have an exact date right now, but we are still looking to provide a beta version of the 2019 ACS summary file in the new format in December of this year. So that's why it would help us to get as much feedback as early as we can. That said, you're not able to review this soon, we would still greatly appreciate any feedback because that would give us an opportunity to continuously update and make better this format. So Mark, thanks for that great question.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to start from the top here. The first question that came in, Caleb, do you have an estimate of the staff hours at the Census Bureau for ACS staff involved in aggregating data in the current format and how that might change under the new proposed format?
Very great question. I don't have staff hours data in front of me. That's something I can probably ask leadership to look into. I just don't have it in front of me right now. However, that said, we do know and estimate that it will save a significant amount of time because cutting down the time it would take to maintain 140,000 just down to 1,000 files, that would create a lot of time savings on our end and thus open up more resources for our program at large.
Sure. Are there any plans to restore the 3-year summary file? Which may be a little off topic. Yeah.
Yeah. No worries. As far as 3-year estimates are concerned, we do not have any plans of bringing that back.
Okay. And
that doesn't mean it won't happen.
And this is a related question about data availability. So will the beta version be retroactive, or will you just apply it to 2019 and then data sets going forward?
Yes. So currently, it is not going to be retroactive. This beta format will be available starting at the 2019 vintage year. And then we'd like to provide it as well for the 2020 vintage year when that data is released in basically a year from now. That doesn't mean that we're not going to retroactively change formats or add in the new format. Just for right now, we're only having the 2019 vintage year.
Okay. And this is a more technical question. Is there any significance to using pipe versus CVS format?
Matt or Ben, would you be able to weigh in on that one?
Hey, Caleb. There's no real difference. That's just what we chose internally. Usually we choose that for our labels so that we, if we have any labels with commas or things in there, we know for sure that it's separated by something we're not using.
Okay. Will you be building SAS libraries for the column labels?
Matt, can you weigh in on that?
Can you repeat that, Mark?
Will you be building SAS libraries, I guess, that define the column labels?
Oh, yes. So that's a good question. The table shells that we currently put out, they will already match the current data format. So that, let's say, B01001 line 001, that's currently in our table shells, that will match one-to-one with these column headers.
Okay. And Ben, you had showed some SAS syntax program, and somebody asked if there would be scripts for other statistical software, Stata, R, etc.
The reason we use SAS is just because it's widely used, and the current example for the current program is written in SAS. I'll have to defer it to Matt if we want to write the example program in any other platform.
Okay. In terms of the deadline on the 13th, is that close of business COB on the 13th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And where will the metadata for each field be stored?
Matt?
The metadata will be stored just as we've shared in that update ACS summary file link. If you go to in the same place as the data, so that metadata is in, I believe for that year, it's called 2018 table shells. Okay, let's just go to it here. Yep, so ACS 2018 table shells. That one file, it's in Excel, and it holds all of the labels there. And there's probably no reason why we couldn't just put that in CSV or some other format as well.
Okay. Did I see correctly during the SAS demonstration that the fields are in a slightly new format, or for example, B01, I guess that there was no underscore in the variable name, which somebody had seen in the earlier version. Is there a slightly different format for the variable names?
The only difference should be there's no E or M. So the label should say B01001 underscore 001, for example, for that table and that line number. And then after that, the column header on the data should either show E for estimate or M for margin of error. So we could probably do a little bit better on describing that, but other than those changes between the estimate and the margin of error, those labels are going to be the same. They're going to be the same label for that estimate and margin of error. It's just that differentiation between one is an estimate for that label and one is a margin of error for that label.
Okay. Will this alter the API addresses for pulling specific state data, etc.?
So that's a good question. No, actually, it'll be the same with this. It'll be the same as the API label, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. But we know that you can't get everything from the API, so you might want to house all of ACS data in your databases. The API for doing that isn't the best option right now. It's a little bit slow each call. It take a long time. So those column headers, those variable like the 01001 line 1, those are going to be the exact same as in the API.
Great. Caleb, this might be for you. Someone just had a general question about using the 1 year versus the 5 year data for getting accurate information from the ACS. Do you just want to say very briefly the difference between those two?
Yeah, so ACS estimates between 1 year and 5 year. So 1 year has a population threshold. So it is for areas of 65,000 in population or more. And then 5 year does not have a population threshold, so it can get down to the very small areas. So it is best to use 1 year when you are wanting to take a look at maybe a state level or a populous county, metropolitan area, etc. It's also a great way to look at more centralized data for that year. But if you want to go more deep down to such as the census tract or a block group, you will want to use the 5 year, and this will be as a period of time. So it's not going to be a single point in time for any of those. It's going to be a period. So let me actually show you very quickly. If you were to go to our ACS webpage, and it might just take a little bit of time for my screen to load. Apologize about that. But anyway, so it's still loading, geez. But we have a page on our website where you can take a look at the 1 year, the 3 year, and the 5 year and decide which is best for you per your program.
Okay. Great, thank you. Yeah, somebody else asked if SAS will be the only format available. We've already answered that one. And somebody wanted to know if they need to have SAS running on their machine in order to access the data. I think the answer is yes to that. This is not an online application where you're using an online version of SAS to compile the results.
Oh, Mark. So you don't need SAS necessarily to get the data, but it's just the example programs we chose are in SAS because we know a lot of the users we have are SAS users, but we do have some different versions. Maybe we can discuss in the informal afterwards, like what other use cases will be helpful.
Great. When you say that a final decision hasn't been made for the 2016 to 2020 ACS release, does that mean that the status quo is still an option, or have you decided that the format is definitely changing and you just need to work out the details?
That's a great question. So,
okay.
Yep. So what we're looking at right now is, as of right now, yes, status quo. So we are still working with our current format and still planning on sending out the current format. If we do make any changes, we will greatly publicize this, but as of right now, expect the 2020 data, which is both the 1 year and 5 year, to be the status quo format that you are familiar with.
Okay. Will there be ZICTA, or go ahead, finish your thought.
I'm sorry, Mark, I just got pulled up that one page for the when to use 1 year, 3 year, or 5 year estimates.
I see that.
If you don't mind, could you actually send in the chat this link? I tried doing that myself. I'm not seeing where the chat is, but
yeah,
if you send that out for everyone, that would be very helpful.
Sure, I'll do that in 1 minute.
Sure, no problem.
Someone asked if there will be ZICTA or zip code data in this first release.
Matt, have you looked into the geographies available for the first release and the beta?
Oh yeah, good question. Yeah, I think all geographies that are going to be available in the current version of the summary file are going to be in the proposed version as well. So for ZICTAs, I think that's 1 year, 5 year. Yes, they'll be in there.
Great. Just some people have just said that they look forward to the change, that they agree that the format is been a little cumbersome, and they look forward to working with fewer files. Will the geographic files continue to have summary levels?
I don't believe there's any change there. Matt, could you look into it?
Sure. Yes, those summary levels will still be there. I know that's really helpful to have in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Someone just kind of offered a suggestion that to please include sufficient metadata with each release. For example, with geography, to include the GeoID, the name, geographic components, and in a perfect world, geographic variants. That's just, I guess, a comment for you all. Someone else asked if the jam values will still be used.
I'm not sure if there's changes to jam values. Matt, could you touch on that?
Sure. Yeah, those are going to stay the same as they were.
Great. And just a few more questions here. Is there significance to the symbol in hashtag geo_ID? Is the .dat file format proprietary to SAS? Maybe you understand that question better than I. Oh, those are two different questions. The first one is there a significance to the symbol in hashtag geo_ID? I guess that's the hashtag symbol.
Hey, Caleb, I can take this one. Yeah, that's a good question too. It's primarily just internal. So if there's an issue with it, we can we can definitely change that. It was just internal for the hashtag, and also the DAT file. It's just a text file, so there's no nothing special with
Right.
it.
Okay. And Caleb, I see. Thanks for posting the more succinct link there to the ACS 1-year and 5-year estimates there in the chat. Someone else just
Yes, no problem.
Yeah. Someone made a pitch for Stata, please. And someone else mentioned that CSV is the most universal format. And while lots of commercial folks use SAS, a lot of academics use Stata and SPSS. And let's see, this is a question not related to the format change. Census differential privacy is ongoing. Is there something similar that's going to be applied to the ACS estimates? That's a much broader question, I think, that's probably beyond the scope of what we can cover in this Q&A. But Census Bureau, I think, will be providing more information about how DP will be applied to the ACS estimates as we get further down the road. Anything you would add to that, Caleb?
I would only say I can connect you with the right contact to get the most up-to-date information on that. If you please just send us an email to what you see on the screen, acso.users.support@census.gov. My name is Caleb. I'll put you into contact with our point of contact for differential privacy.
Great. Will the geographic header files remain in fixed format, or will those also be piped limited?
Those, it's a good question. Those will remain in fixed format.
Okay. And then one person just asked if they have questions about specific data that they're looking for. Is there a staff person or phone number, someone they can contact to get help with the summary file?
The email on the screen is probably the best way, acso.users.support. We do also have a number. It is 301-763-1405. And I'll also I'll type this into the chat now that I figured out the chat function.
Okay. Somebody mentioned they can appreciate how this new format simplifies things for ACS staff and users, but that this format could be hard for people like me who need data for many tables, but just 1 or 2 states. Is there a way to accommodate users who don't want to read data for the entire country?
Matt, can you touch that?
Oh, sure. So yeah, that's another good question. We would like to point data users in 3 directions. Usually data.census.gov. You said for, what did they say, more for all states or multiple tables?
Lots of tables, but just for a few geographic areas, I guess.
Yeah, I want to say either data.census.gov, or if that doesn't have the functionality yet, I know we're building that out for the download to be better, then the API is probably the more user-friendly, a better option for that.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much it, unless there are any final questions. If anybody does anybody have any additional questions they want to put into that question box? There are several people who just wanted to thank you all for doing this work, and that it's a great step forward.
Thank you, Mark. While we wait for potential additional questions, I'd like to make a quick comment based on the other comments that were provided that weren't exactly questions. So in terms of providing the beta format in other formats, not just rather beyond SAS, but also in Stata, etc. If you could, in your feedback, whether it's through the email or through the discussion thread, add in what you are looking to see this in, the amount of feedback we receive will help with the priority on our side internally. So we would greatly like to see, in addition to any feedback, also what format you would like to see this in, to see if we are able to do that.
Great. I guess one final question. I think this one has already been answered about the API addresses, which, Matt, I think you mentioned that those API addresses would not be changing.
Right, yep.
We did just get 2 more questions. For the person who asked about multiple tables and few geographies, they can ask for help on the API Slack channel at the U.S. Census Bureau, which somebody mentioned has been very helpful for them. And this person says they use JMP statistical software, which is a SAS product. Any thoughts on using JMP for this?
Matt or Ben?
Hey, I haven't never used JMP, but not at this point. I'm not familiar with JMP. But yeah, happy to talk afterward.
Okay. Well, those are all of the questions. So I want to thank all of our panelists. I appreciate you taking the time to provide this update and to invite data users to provide input. It's always very much appreciated to get advance notice of these kinds of changes before they take place rather than after. And as I mentioned earlier, we will provide a link to the recording of this webinar. The slides will also be available in the ACS Online community, so you can expect to hear from us in the next few days about those resources. And this concludes today's webinar, but as I mentioned, if anybody wants to stick around on the line, we do have a few more minutes and talk more informally with any of the presenters, feel free to do so. And I can unmute your lines and you can ask questions that way. So thank you very much, everybody.